cross-post from r/entitledparents. Some thought it would fit better here. This was just a few months ago and I was volunteering for my local pumpkin patch, which I had done a few times before. I sat down at the front table where people go to pay for their pumpkins and this woman and her child come sit down next to me. Keep in mind they were there for Cub Scouts volunteering and I wasn't with an organization. I was just volunteering. Things start going as normal, people coming round and buying pumpkins. I was checking them out and logging the sold. She was ALREADY giving Karen vibes and she started making comments about needing to have a parent with me. She was getting pretty upset about that alone, even though I knew I was fine. I brushed this off and started looking through the IPA manual for our Apple Pay customers and she snatched it away from me without a word. Eventually I was helping a customer determine how much they would pay, because their pumpkin was in between sizes, and the second they walked away the Karen said, "I am perfectly capable of doing this on my own." In a very condescending tone, I informed her that the whole reason me and her child were here was to learn by serving the community, yet she insisted on doing it all. She got very mad after I said this and started going off on me, calling me a little brat. So I fled the scene. Still angers me to this day. I get it must be difficult traveling with children, especially when you have 3 of them. But when you have 2 parents on hand, this shouldn't have happened. So I treated myself to a first-class ticket on my train company after a long day in the office. All was fine until a family with 2 children and a baby get on. About 15 minutes into the journey they decide that the baby needs to be changed. I thought they would go and find a toilet like most people would, because there are toilets with baby changing facilities on this train. Instead, he got up and came to the buggy in the doorway to change the kid. Obviously that is horrible enough, but I thought that maybe they do the decent thing and find the toilet to dispose of the disgusting used nappy. Nope, they didn't. As she went to the bin, I asked her to go find the toilet and go dispose of the used nappy in there. But she ignored me, put the nappy in the bin and decided to just roll her eyes at me before her husband said something. I had put my headphones in at this stage, so no idea, and I don't care. So now they getting off halfway through the journey and we have a nice stinky train carriage to contend with for the rest of the journey. Fantastic times. I'm gonna hand this one to Mary, it's a long one.
I did not know they made those in Canada too. For context, I am a young university student. I have 2 phones, one which is an old Huawei model that I use for school and work. It's quite slow but has all my authenticator apps for school, years of notes, the email I use for work and my work number on it. It runs okayish well but is horrible in terms of processing speed and storage, yet I'm a lazy shit and keep putting off transferring all the data to make my future self's life easier. My second phone, on the other hand, is a newer iPhone 14 Pro Max model and it has all my games, friend contacts, social media, etc. on them. This occurred back when classes were still in session, but reading all these stories jotted my memory, and now I finally have time to share it too. Everything is still so vividly detailed in my head that I basically can't get it out, since everything was so absurd. Anyways, onto the story. Onto the bus I go, a normal ride for me which I take every day. I take 2 connections, one which is an express bus from the university to a SkyTrain station, and the second from the SkyTrain station to home. The second bus is where I encounter this entitled parent. I sit down at the back of the bus, where I always sit, and a woman who's on her phone and talking very loudly, gets on the bus with a noisy kid who is screaming and crying and throwing a hissy fit, for God knows why. I sighed, realize it's going to be one of those rides, and tried to ignore the commotion. Little did I know, the little one has climbed up next to my seat and staring at my screen, while her mother is nearly 5 seats away still in heated conversation about God knows what. Out of nowhere, I hear, "Do you have games on your phone?" I spin around, and there he is. This little kid, perhaps 7 or 8, is gazing deep into my soul, on his knees on the seat, and inches from my face. I lean back, because, well, I don't function well with people up in my face, and this kid leans closer. Foolishly, I reply, "Yeah? Can I play on it?" "No. Go away." "But I'm bored." I don't care. Go away. The kid pouts and runs off. I thought that was the end of it. Then, a shadow looms over me. I hear an ahem. Then again. I tried to ignore it, but it was like an unskippable boss fight cutscene. Then, out of the corner of my ear, young man. I look up. Great. It's the crazy lady. Yeah? Why did you tell my son he couldn't use your phone? Because it's my phone? You kids are always glued to the screen these days. You can do without it for a single bus ride. At this point, I am stunned. So I don't respond for a few seconds, then slowly reply, what I do with my phone is none of your business. This lady recoils in shock and anger, as if I had just buried a puppy alive. How dare you talk to me like that? Show some respect. She then sees my second phone, my work phone, and says, you have two phones. Just give him one. You can use the other one. No, lady. I'm not giving some stranger's kid my phone. But you don't need two phones. Lady. I was annoyed at this point, and my tone was starting to get aggressive. It doesn't matter that I have two phones. They are my phones. I won't be giving them to your son. No means no. She rolls her eyes and walks away, her son screaming and clutching the legs of her pants. I tune out the commotion once more, stricken with disbelief and still wondering what in the world just happened. Open up some offline games to decompress. I thought that was the end of everything. How foolish I was. I feel a tug on my backpack as I zone out. I instinctively look from my screen, and this little piece of shit is under the seat, reaching into my bag trying to pull out my second phone. I panic, smack away his hand, and shout, what the fuck are you doing? Now, I am normally a very calm and reserved person. However, having served 6 full years in the Royal Canadian Army Cadets and currently being a drill instructor, my voice was loud when I wanted it to be. The kid winces and cowers, freezing for a solid moment before crawling out from under the seat, and runs to his mother crying. I sigh to myself. Yep. She's back. Before the kid even reaches her, she's up and storming over. How dare you speak to my son like that? Your son tried to steal my phone. Let him have it. Stop being a brat. You can stay off your phone for a moment. It's not that big of a deal. I was seething with rage, boiling with anger. Without skipping a beat, I spat back, well, if it's not such a big deal, how about you let him have yours? That way, you can keep an eye on your little precious angel and start being a responsible parent for once. Your kid being bored is not my responsibility. She turned red and demanded, are you calling me a bad parent? And I responded with, if you were such a good parent, your kid wouldn't be off trying to steal other people's stuff. Now, our shouting match had drawn quite a commotion. I heard a few yes and damns from the back of the bus. She grew visibly red and snatched my phone from my hand. Not my work phone, the one in my hand. Give me that. You brats don't deserve these. I was stunned for a second that she actually did something so incomprehensibly stupid. Looking back, I knew I should have done something better. But I sprang up, wrestled my phone from her grasp, and knocked her down in the process. Shit hits the fan. She starts wailing like a banshee, screaming that I assaulted her. Her son is crying and he's punching me in the legs. The bus screeches to a halt, and the driver comes running up. Now, seeing the situation, me towering over the screeching mother and holding a phone, he assumes that I was the perpetrator. This is quite a long bus, joined together with 2 sections, so I assumed that he hadn't heard or saw exactly what was happening, only noticing the commotion in his rear mirror and seeing me knock Karen down after snatching the phone from her grasp. So he says, sir, return that device at once and leave the premises, or I will be forced to call the PAL. Before he can even finish the sentence, the entire bus explodes with several other passengers speaking up at once, defending my case and telling the driver what had actually happened. The driver held up his hand, backed up, and tried to get everyone to calm down, which took quite a while, especially because the Karen kept screaming that she was going to have me arrested, that she was going to sue me, that she was going to press charges, etc. Once everything finally calms down, I begin to speak. However, the Karen interjects with, sir, he stole my phone from me. I demand to have this insert racial slur arrested. Ma'am, please don't use that language here. He looks like he's about to say something else, but I sigh and hold out my hand, and in the most calm voice I can muster in the moment, reply, "Sir, this phone is mine. If you will allow me, I will unlock it." I hold up the phone. It's got an anime wallpaper on it, certainly not something middle-aged women with children would have. I type in the password, and the screen is unlocked. The Karen starts screeching again. He saw me type in my password. That's how he knows. "Lady," a clearly annoyed man in the back speaks up in a booming voice. "There are cameras on the bus. Everything is recorded." At the mention of cameras, she turns white as a sheet. Then, without skipping a beat, she drags her crying son to the back door and begins pounding on it, demanding that she be let out, all while screaming obscenities and threatening that she's going to sue, that she's going to file a complaint with transit, blah blah blah. That wasn't even it. In the commotion, despite threatening to buy the Karen, someone had actually called the cops. Right on cue, so two officers roll up to the bus with flashing lights. The Karen throws herself at the officers, as they are let in, and starts spinning some sob story, when she's cut off at once by a very annoyed police officer. This was something like 8 at night and was probably nearing the end of his shift or something, because he had an expression like he was absolutely done. Long story short, the bus was halted for something like an hour and 45 minutes. A second one pulled up which all the other passengers filed off into, not before giving a witness's statement. The camera feed was pulled, and Karen was placed into the back of a cruiser, after she slapped a police officer. One says that they arrived, because there was a report of someone being assaulted on public transport. The police get my contact information, my ID, etc., and tells me that they'll contact me if anything else needs to be done. I have no idea what happened to the kid, because I didn't stick around for the aftermath and just wanted to get the hell out of there. The worst part? My parents, who was always displeased with me coming at home late, unfortunately, did not believe my story. They thought it was an excuse. So I bought my house in a gated community Hoa about a year ago. I was very wary about it being in Hoa, but I pulled the trigger anyway, because it was in a good location and fit my family's needs perfectly. Over the past year I've gotten to know a lot of my neighbors, and almost everything is going perfectly, except for one racist neighbor, but I dealt with that issue. Anyway, my peace was disrupted by an email sent out by the Hoa about a month ago. "Hey guys, we are getting sued, but it's totally not our fault lol. We are letting you know about it finally." I talked to the guy suing the Hoa and holy shit. The Hoa is actually going to lose. He's got mountains and mountains of evidence, to include a voice recording of the board members admitting that this case was valid, documented retaliation attempts, documented perjury, and more. As I'm seeing this evidence I'm just thinking, what kind of Game of Thrones shit have I gotten myself into here? Despite knowing they're in the wrong, they're choosing to fight a losing battle in court, wasting the community's funds. After talking to him, I realized that his lawsuit was brought forth the whole 2 months before I purchased my house, and the Hoa never notified the community until 10 months later. The sellers could not disclose to me, because they never knew. I also found out from my own very easy research that the Hoa is picking and choosing which community rules and regulations to follow, eschewing their fiduciary duty and letting our community slowly become dilapidated to keep Hoa fees artificially low so they can presumably trap more people here. As someone who has put their entire metaphorical nut into my new house, this is a huge issue. Fuck my Hoa, rant Eddie. I only want to give so much info online, because I am very heavily considering legal action. But one piece that might be of interest is that the former board president sold his house within a month of the filing. I know for a fact that they did not disclose to their buyers. The board has been a turnstile of people since the lawsuit, except for the current president. All the while they did not disclose. In 2021, my husband and I decided to buy a condo. The idea of no lawn work or outdoor maintenance seemed great. We were both busy, so it seemed like the right choice. Worst decision ever. I had never lived in an Hoa community, so the idea that grown adults could so ridiculous had never entered my mind. The fact that being on the Hoa is the only accomplishment that these people have had is just sad. Because of that, holy cow, do they abuse their power. When we moved in, the community had standard rules. trash cans in by 5, garage doors closed, etc. All measurable and non-subjective rules. As time went on, I started noticing inconsistencies with our community finances. I did my research and found out what my rights were for looking into them. The board did not like that. Over the last 2 years of me investigating their spending, they have added all of the below rules. They copied their employee handbook. And if you notice, everything is at the board's sole discretion. Everything now falls into some sort of harassment. I get letters weekly. If I even look on their direction, they feel threatened. Maybe it's just me, but assault, sexual harassment, violence. These are law enforcement issues. Who gets assaulted and thinks, I better call my HOA president. Here are the new rules from our community moronic dictators. 22.2 The Board of Directors may require owners or residents to immediately remove such stickers, bumper stickers on vehicles, signage, doormats, objects, or other such displays that are visible from the common elements, collectively, displays, which are perceived by the Board of Directors, in its sole discretion, to be offensive to a reasonable person. By way of example, any displays which may be perceived to promote violence, terrorism, white supremacy, sexual misconduct, discrimination based on sexual orientation, discrimination based on other protected class status, sex, race, religious belief, national origin, age, pregnancy, citizenship, familial status, disability status, are prohibited. Additionally, displays with profanities, in words or images, are not allowed. B. The distribution, display, or discussion of any written or graphic material, including calendars, posters, and cartoons that are sexually suggestive or show hostility toward an individual or group because of sex, suggestive or insulting sounds, leering, staring, whistling, obscene gestures, content in letters, notes, facsimiles, emails, photos, text messages, tweets, and internet postings or other form of communication that are sexual in nature and offensive. See unwelcome, unwanted physical contact, including touching, tickling, pinching, patting, brushing up against, hugging, cornering, kissing, fondling, impeding or blocking movement, forced sexual intercourse, and sexual assault. D. Those sexual acts that are deemed a crime under Florida statutes, including without limitation, such prohibited acts found in Section 784.049 Florida Statutes, Sexual Cyber Harassment, Chapter 800, Florida Statutes, Lewdness, Indecent Exposure, and Chapter 794, Florida Statutes, Sexual Battery. Sexual nature that would cause discomfort or humiliate a reasonable person at whom the conduct was directed. Prohibited behavior includes, but is not limited to, the following. 43.3 A person who falsifies an act of harassment and reports the same in bad faith commits harassment. 43.4 Claims of harassment may not be made on behalf of another person. Only those that feel they have been harassed and have first-hand knowledge of the harassment may file a claim of harassment. Those that feel they have been harassed must make their claim in writing and must submit any supporting information to support their claim at the time of filing the claim. When submitting a claim of harassment, a description of what happened must be included and the specific section of Rule 43 that was violated must be indicated to tie the incident to the rule. Violations of the harassment Rule 43 must be submitted within 10 days of the incident to be investigated. 8. For context, since some think I am some crazy lunatic running around wanting to harass people. These are laws meant for law enforcement to enforce. No HOAs, when it fits their purpose. These things aren't happening. They are using these rules to twist things to fit. Some of you have referenced a crazy, 100% a true violation letter I posted on another post. Not fabricated, and true. I am a 40-year-old, 130-pound woman. My HOA president that wrote added these new rules in a 31-year-old man.